What if you could work on your life goals exactly when you say you want to? No more putting things off. How would that make your life better? I used to have a huge problem with completing tasks. I would start something enthusiastically, but after a couple of days, I would find myself putting it off. There have been so many unfinished tasks in the graveyard of my goals that I just didn't complete. In case you're new here, welcome to Actionables. My name is Peyton. I'm an NLP life coach, and my intention with this podcast is to help you work on your life goals without struggling and getting overwhelmed. If you're a returning listener or viewer of this podcast, thank you for tuning back in. It's great to have you here. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button for weekly episodes wherever you're listening or watching this. And with that, let's jump into this one. To start off, I don't think we need to get into the meaning of the word procrastination because most people have the habit of procrastinating. And I know this because I was a serial procrastinator. There have been so many things in the past that I started but didn't see them through because I kept putting them off. To give you an example, there was a time where I got interested in DIY and sewing and stitching, and I even got myself a sewing machine, which was a gift from an ex boyfriend. The point is, I was obsessed with that sewing machine for a couple of days. I watched YouTube videos and I even made a couple of t shirt dresses, but after a few days, that initial excitement and obsession faded. And that sewing machine was eventually packed up and it now rests in my attic. I've often thought about that sewing machine. I didn't give it away thinking that I'd start someday, but the truth is, I kept putting it off because of my habit of procrastination, and it took over me completely. This negative habit of procrastination took over my initial interest of being creative with a sewing machine and stitching. And this is what happens when you allow this habit to take over your goals. Now, in my case, it was a smaller and much less impactful goal that it had its adverse effect on. However, if you aren't careful about this negative habit, it can cause you to put off working on goals that have a much larger impact on your life. Imagine putting off work projects which are critical to your professional growth, or even putting off doing the work in your relationships. The impact of procrastination has real and dire consequences. So, let's talk about what is going on in the brain that causes us to avoid the things that we know that we should be doing. According to behavioral psychology, there is a phenomenon called time inconsistency, which is a fancy way to say that there's this tendency of the brain to value immediate rewards more than long term ones. Our brains are naturally conditioned to crave instant gratification. We enjoy short term rewards rather than waiting for the long term ones. The brain isn't as concerned with future rewards or consequences as it is with immediate rewards and consequences. Here's an example. Let's say you want to lose weight. You know this that it is going to take you time and effort, which is a long term reward. So your brain does not prefer to support you in making the dietary changes and your efforts of hitting the gym because the brain doesn't like anything new. It prefers the status quo, and it naturally tries to give you reasons to not stick with your efforts, and instead it tries to trick you to stay with your current weight, making it that much more difficult to do the necessary things. This neuroscience information may be a little discouraging, but it's actually helpful. When you know that this is the natural tendency of the brain to favor instant gratification and it may hold you back from doing what's necessary, you can take much better action. Instead of being a victim to this wiring of your brain, you can choose to use this information to your advantage. So, how do you trick your mind into taking action and stop putting off doing the work? Well, Have you ever experienced the pain of procrastinating a task? It becomes very real only right before a deadline. Let's say you have to create a presentation for work and you've been putting it off for a few weeks. You know that you have to do it, but there's no real threat till the day before the deadline. Now, since you can't put off the task and have to do it, your brain sees it as a necessary thing to do, and now it prioritizes it. Here are two ways that I use personally in which I don't allow myself to procrastinate on what needs to be done. The first one is something I learned from author James Clear. In his amazing book, Atomic Habits, James teaches his technique called temptation bundling. And this is how it works. Identify something that you love to do. Let's say you love to watch a particular series each week. Next, prioritize something that you have to complete this week. Using the temptation bundling method to do what you have to do along or after you've completed what has to be done. In the words of James Clear, the basic format is only do thing that you love while doing thing that you procrastinate on. In other words, do what needs to be done before what you love, which is going to act as a reward. So, this way, you can trick your brain into seeking that reward. This is such a powerful technique and I have used it several times and continue to do so. I work out daily, something which I don't particularly like, along while listening to an audiobook, which I do love. So the reward I get is that I get to do what I love, that is listening to an audiobook, while doing what I don't love, which is working out. The second way to overcome procrastination is to use something I call the MVA, which stands for Minimal Viable Action. I coined this term for myself to get me into a state when I felt myself slipping. I determine the minimum viable action, that is, minutes, I'm going to spend on a task that I'm about to procrastinate on. Let's say I have to record a video and I'm about to procrastinate. Instead, I'm going to tell myself that instead of recording the whole thing, I'm going to record just, say, a few minutes today and then I'm going to go chill. By activating the MVA, the rule is that you get to beat procrastination every single time because a few minutes of doing something is much more important and better than putting it off altogether. And bonus, here's a third thing that can help you beat your procrastination, and that is to develop the habit of consistency. Years back, I created a simple challenge called the Become Consistent Challenge. It was primarily for me, but when I shared it with my clients, they asked me to make a full course, which till date remains one of my best selling courses. Using the Become Consistent Challenge, you can do 15 to 20 minutes of a good practice daily for a period of 3 weeks, and by the end of 3 weeks, you would have started building consistency to work on your goals. And this way, you can build momentum towards what you're working on. And if you'd like to join the Consistent Challenge, the link is mentioned in the description box below. As someone who has struggled with procrastinating on her dreams for far too long, I can vouch and say that these steps have worked for me and can help you too. The best way to find out if something works for you is to go ahead, apply it, and trust the evidence. And that does it. Those were the 3 simple ways in which you can overcome procrastination once and for all. I want to say that you may have got in the habit of procrastination, but since it is your habit, it is also up to you to get out of it. And the fantastic news there is that you can. You just need to decide. If you'd like to get in the habit of creating momentum toward your life goals, and instead of doom scrolling on your phone, spend 10 minutes on it, you can check out the Become Consistent Challenge. The link for that is mentioned in the description box below. Till next week, remember, you matter, your goals matter, and it's really up to you to make it happen. Take good care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.